What was it like auditioning for a televised singing competition? I'll tell you this week. So obviously, when you've made it clear that you're a musician, especially one that enjoys singing and writing their own songs, almost everyone you know that's somewhat of a fan of yours or has heard your music will say, hey, you've got to try out for The Voice or American Idol, whatever it is. Just to be safe with this video, I'm not going to mention the name of the show I was on, but I can allude to the fact that I had to use my voice. So anyways, there's a lot of other videos on YouTube of people talking about their experience on this particular television show, and we'll talk about this later, the contract that I signed said if I mention anything about the process, they can sue me like $1,500 per leaked information. So I'm going to go ahead and play it safe and not mention what show I auditioned for, but I think you get the point. So I'll just kind of go through what that process was like, just kind of each step that I took. So at the very beginning, I tried to find the closest that they were doing the auditions to me, and at that particular time, it was Denver, Colorado. So I bought a plane ticket, I flew out to Denver, Colorado, and just before heading out there, you had to make an online profile with these people and, fill out, send them links to your music, tell them what kind of songs you would do if you were on the show, that sort of thing. But the main bit was the very first day, and I'll try and put a picture somewhere up here. I got out there, and you're standing outside of what I believe was their NBA stadium, where the Denver Nuggets play, I think. And I stood outside in a sea of people, and I was lucky enough to be towards the front of that line. That kind of holds back to last week's video where I talked about my nerves. I got there as early as humanly possible. I think I got out of bed at like 4 a.m. to take a shower, relax myself as best I could, and stand in line. And I ended up being one of the first people in that group outside. Now, the reason I say that is because by the time I had gotten there, that place was flooded with people already. So people had already been auditioning all morning, it looked like. So in talking about that, as I'm standing in line, I'm going to go ahead and say it was roughly 5 to 5.5 hours of standing in line, waiting to have that first audition. What you had to have ready for the first audition was 2 a cappella songs. You can't have any instruments or any backing track. You're just going to stand in front of some people and sing a song a cappella, and hopefully it sounds good. And the reason they tell you to have 2 really is just in case they're unsure about that first song, they'll ask you to sing that second one. And I'll go ahead and tell you now, I didn't have a second one picked out. I was really hoping I would just nail the first one. So I'm standing in line for roughly 5 hours, and me being the nervous guy, I've got a bottle of water, and I'm sipping on it maybe every minute on the minute, sipping a little bit of room temperature water. And I probably look angry. That's another thing about my nerves and stage fright. I'm freaking out internally the entire day and really the weekend leading up to it. So I'm not talking to anyone. I probably look angry at the world and just sipping on a bottle of water. And the people on either side of me in line are talking really loudly to each other, and they're singing songs and just having a good time. And they would turn to the person behind them and say, "What song are you singing? Are you so excited? Oh man, this is going to be..." The phrase that they said a lot all throughout the audition process was, "It's going to be your year, man, for your music and for your career. It's going to take off this year." That's just what everyone said to everyone. I'm sure I said it to 1 or 2 people throughout the process. I was standing there, silent, as still as can be, just taking, 1 or 2 steps every time the line slowly moved and sipping on some water. And another thing I did was I gave myself my starting note, and sometimes it was just mentally, but sometimes I would hum it. And that's the most noise that I made, was just a quick hum. I think at one point the girl in front of me said, "Hey, what about you, man? What song are you singing?" And I said, "I'm singing Nat King Cole's Straighten Up and Fly Right." If you can imagine it, there's some quiet kid standing by himself, not talking to anyone, sipping on a bottle of water, and every once in a while going, Kind of weird. I probably looked kind of weird, to be honest. 5.5 hours of doing that, and then eventually we get into the stadium, and I'm just thankful to be going inside, and they lead us, around the stadium to some chairs, and I think I got to sit down for, I bet it was 20 minutes in reality, but it felt like 5. Moments later, they say, all right, this row, let's go back. And they lead you into a room, and there's 3 different people sitting at a table up against the wall, and those are producers for the show. And then they have about 7 chairs lined up diagonally here and 7 chairs lined up diagonally here, roughly, and then you just kind of sit down, some of you over here, some of you over here, and there's more people outside your room standing in a line up against the wall waiting for their turn to go into the room. And they've got a pink piece of tape taped down to the floor in the middle of the room facing the producer's table. And they say, listen, we're going to call your name. You're going to stand up. You're going to stand behind the pink line of tape. And you're going to deliver your song to us. And they gave us a little bit of pointers. They said, don't look here, there, everywhere. Just try and, like you're auditioning for the show. I was the last guy that they called up there. I got up there behind the pink line. I decided to do Straighten Up and Fly Right, Nat King Cole. And I give myself a rhythm. I looked the producer sitting in the center of the table, my full attention, and I just started singing my lyrics. And I chose to sing high and fast. And what they do with me and with everyone else, they get X amount of your song, and they said, once we get a feel for how you sound, we'll cut you off and tell you to sit down. I don't think anyone had to sing their second song. I sang my song. I barely made it through the chorus, and he said, that's enough. Go ahead and have a seat. And then the big moment came where I said, you know what, Jeff, you came, you stood in line for 5 hours, you fought the desire to just run home and get in your car and fly back to Oklahoma. You stuck with it, you went through it, and at this point in time, you did your best, and you can be proud that you tried, that you really stepped out of your comfort zone to do this. And he just said, if I call your name, stand up or something like that. And then he proceeded to list off every single person in that room. And the more people he listed off, the more I thought, oh man. And he never said my name. And he said, this year wasn't your year, or maybe next year's your year, right? And he said, you didn't make it this time. Have a good one. And when all those people cleared the room, it was me in this room alone with 3 producers. They give you your thing that basically said, hey, you're going to round 2. And so he gives that to me, and I have it somewhere. I tried to find it before the video. I don't know where it is. But he wrote on the back of it, you sound like a guy who would maybe sing One Republic, Gavin DeGraw, John Mayer, Jason Mraz type dude. He asked me if I knew the script, and I said, yes, I'm familiar with them. He said, you sound like the script, stuff like that. And he said something that I had heard throughout my process there. You're exactly what we're looking for. The sound, the look, you've got it. He said, what are you going to do for round 2? He explained to me, you've got to do 4 songs, and at least one of those songs has to be without accompaniment. So you can have someone play piano or guitar with you for your audition, or you can play guitar and sing and play piano and sing. But at least one of those songs, you have to get rid of all instruments, and it's just you and a microphone doing your thing. And so I said, well, I think I've got, Say It Ain't So, which is a cover that I do at almost all my shows that people request. And then I had my rap mashup, and he said, we're going to love that. They're going to eat that rap mashup up, dude. Good idea, man. You're smart. He said, you know what you're doing. So I felt really good. And what they tell you is you're going to have to go downstairs to this room, and they'll schedule a time for you to come back for your second audition. And so they say, well, you'll get a phone call with us within 3 days, and we'll tell you. Well, in my case, it was, I think, the next day. It was a Sunday afternoon. And so they said, meet us at this address here for your round 2 audition. So I got my guitar, and I go to that address, and it is at the bottom of these huge mountains, and it's a recording studio that's in the bottom of these mountains. Coolest thing ever. And I go in there, and I sign in, and I wait outside for my round 2 audition. They call my name. I go in there, plug in my guitar. It doesn't work. The electron of the battery had died. They didn't have spare batteries. I didn't have spare batteries. So they had to get me another microphone. They mic'd up me, and they mic'd up the guitar, and I did my best. And they seemed to dig it. And I'll tell you really quickly, it's different in that there were 3 producers of the show in the round 2 audition as well, except they also had a video camera off here to the side, and they want you to look at that camera. They say, don't look at us, look at the camera. But I did 3 songs. They said, yeah, man, sounds cool. And then they said, you've got to do your 1 song without your guitar. So put the guitar down, give us what you got. And I sang Titanium by David Guetta. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but whatever. I did Titanium, and I wasn't super confident with the key that I was in. And because I was nervous, I think I just barely made those high notes. And there's a lot of them in that song. And so they got to the end and they said, well, it wasn't terrible, but do you have a different song that you could do that we can pull up a karaoke track for? And I didn't. And they said, you know what? It was good enough. You're going on to prepare for round 3. So it's cool. I was unprepared and it pushed me through to round 3. And then I go to the beginning of round 3, kind of. And so after you're round 2, if you've made it, they say you need to go sit over here down this hallway and wait for your interview with NBC. So there's nothing much else to do but to watch other people come in for their round 2, and it's brutal. I'll tell you exactly what I wore. I had a short sleeve, button-down shirt. I had the sleeve rolled up an extra thing, right? It looked nice and buff. I had tight, skinny jeans. I had some red and white polka dot socks and some gray suede dress shoes and a fedora. And I thought, man, I looked cool. I'm serving them the looks that they want to see. And every other guy in that recording studio looked exactly like that. So I was like, well, oh, well, I guess I am what they're looking for. And then I remember some girl came in and she looked like early 2000s Britney Spears. All I remember is her leaving the audition room. And I thought, wow, she kind of left a little bit early. And it's because she was crying. They had made fun of the way that she dressed, and she obviously didn't make it. And so you sit down, and that guy asked me all kinds of questions, and he really didn't seem all that interested. I wouldn't say he was being mean or boring, but where are you from? Tell me about your beliefs, religious beliefs even. Tell me about this, that, what you do for a living. What does your mom do for a living? What does your dad do for a living? Your siblings, how old are they? What are their names? They ask you everything, all kinds of stuff. And what they're doing is they're digging for a story for your character. And throughout that interview, I realized it doesn't matter how good I am at singing necessarily. They want to see if they've got a story. And I remember I said, well, my parents are actually divorced. And the dude, no kidding, stops and goes, really? And he grabbed a notepad and a pen and he goes, tell me about that. And I think I said, well, it was 10 years ago. It affected my life in the following ways, and I've gotten over it. Now I'm an adult, and it's, life goes on. And he put the notepad down and he said, well, whatever. Well, it was nice to meet you. And that was the end of our interview. So after my interview with NBC, they set you aside in this other room and they throw this NBC contract right in front of you. And I'm not kidding. That thing was thicker than the paperwork I had to fill out when we bought our house. I do remember what stuck out to me specifically is they wanted to know your Facebook username, your Instagram, your Twitter, Snapchat, whatever you had. Tell us your username because we're going to watch you. And again, that comes back to me not saying exactly who it is I auditioned for, even though I think it's clear. Because straight up they said, if you so much as tell someone, hey, I'm going to be on this singing competition, and we see that and it's in public, we're going to sue you. They say, listen, you can tell family members vague things about, if you want to tell them, hey, I made it to round 3. But if they put on Facebook, which this happened to me, I had a cousin say, hey, my cousin's about to be on this TV show, and I had to message her so quick and say, delete it, delete it, delete it. Because they're going to find me on Facebook. They're going to look through family members and they're going to stalk your family's social media accounts to see if they're talking about you and about the process at all in any way. And if they do, they'll sue the pants off of you. So that's neat. That was pretty much it. Where my story ends with this particular show, I tell people, hey, I made it to round 3, and they say, well, I never saw you on TV. Well, that's because the round where they're in those chairs, that is round 4. So I was just one round, basically, short of that. And I had told you from the beginning, they had been telling me, man, this is your year. You're exactly what we're looking for. The description, you look like and you sound like what we're wanting in today's day and age and on this show right now for this season. And that's the last I heard. What bothers me about the show was I never got constructive criticism. I only got, you look great, you sound great, you're exactly what we're looking for. And I'm left with, they never called me back. I don't know why I didn't make the cut to Hollywood. What I will say about my story from there is I didn't make it to round 4. I got back on a plane. I came back to Oklahoma City and I said, well, what now? What do I do while I wait for potential fame and stardom? And I said, I guess I'll go to community college and get some basics out of the way. My friend had just signed up for community college the same day. He took me out there. We signed up. Started school about a month or two later, and on the first day of school, I ran into my now wife, and I asked her out on a date. We went on a date the third day of school, and the rest is history. Now I'm married, so I still say I got the better end of that deal, not being on The Voice, but instead going to school, getting a little bit of an education, and finding my wife. So that's my story. That's what I experienced auditioning for the television show that I auditioned for, and quit asking me to audition for those shows because I already did it. Thanks for watching. I hope that this kind of fed your curiosity for what it's like doing these shows. If you want to know more, you can message me privately, and I'm happy to maybe answer some deeper questions for you. But until then, I'll see you next week, and here's another song. Took a monkey for a ride in the air. The monkey thought that everything was on the square. The buzzard tried to throw the monkey off his back, but the monkey grabbed his neck and said, now listen, Jack, straighten up and fly right, straighten up and stay right, straighten up and fly right, cool it down, Papa, don't you blow your tie. Ain't no use in diving, what's the use of jiving? Straighten up and fly right, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your tie. The buzzard told the monkey, you a joker bee, release your grip and I will set you free. The monkey looked the buzzard right dead in the eye, said the story's so touching but it sounds like a lie. Straighten up and fly right, straighten up and stay right, straighten up and fly right, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your tie. Straighten up and fly right, straighten up and stay right, straighten up and fly right, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your tie. Straighten up and fly right, straighten up and stay right, straighten up and fly right, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your tie. The buzzard told the monkey, you a jokey bee, release your grip and I will set you free. The monkey looked the buzzard right dead in the eye, said the story's so touching but it sounds like a lie. Straighten up and fly right, straighten up and stay right, straighten up and fly right, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your